We are doing potato gnocchi or potato dumplings now. I've already got some potatoes in the oven, but these are just Maris pipers. So we'll bake them, prick them, and then bake them for around 35 to 40 minutes until they're soft. Alternatively, you can microwave them prick them 4 or 5 minutes just until they're soft, and then we'll mash them. You can also boil them, peel them and boil them. It's just you get a lot more moisture in that way. So the easiest way is pop them in the oven, forget about them for 40 minutes, and then we'll take them out and we'll scoop the flesh out. We've also got some flour. This is just plain flour. You could use pasta flour because it is a type of Italian pasta. It's a potato pasta, but plain flour works fine. Some parmesan, some mozzarella, some peas, just frozen peas, some spring greens, so some sweetheart cabbage. Savoy cabbage would work equally well, or little gem. There's loads of things you could use. I've got 2 lemons because they're not very big, but 1 normal large lemon would work, and some butter, and then we've just got 4 eggs, and that is all we need for this one. So the potatoes out of the oven, they were cooked at 180, so they're lovely and crispy on the outside and soft in the middle. So just cut them open, and then we're just going to scoop out the centre into our bowl. With this gnocchi, it is best to do it while it's warm. So, I mean, they are roasting at the moment, burning my little fingers, but once it goes in there, it'll start cooling down quite quickly. If you're struggling, they are hot, so maybe wear a glove or an oven mitt, or use a tea towel just to hold them, just so you don't burn your fingers, because they do get really, really hot. So once you've scooped them out, we're just going to mash them quickly. There's 2 ways to do this. If you haven't got a masher, you could push them through a sieve, which is a really good way. But just don't overwork them, because the trick is not to work all the starch out, and it's the same when we mash them. We really don't want to overwork them. It's not like you're trying to whip it up to a foam. It is just to crush them and mash them down so they are smooth without lumps. So now we're going to separate the eggs. There's 2 ways to do this. You can either, we want to keep the white, so you can either use the shells, and the reason we keep the white is we can use it for some meringues or something later, so that's one way and you don't get your hands dirty. But the eggshell can sometimes pierce the yolk and split it, so if you're not as confident in doing that, we can crack it open and just pour it straight through our fingers, and that way you tend not to break the yolk, but it's a bit more messy. Now we've got our eggs, so we'll add the eggs first to the warm mashed potato. And mix them in. And the flour. You can scale this recipe up and down, so it's 300 grams of potato for 2 eggs and 100 grams of flour, but we've obviously doubled it for this. But you could times it by 3 if you've got friends over, or if there's just 2 of you eating, obviously just half the recipe. And then we're going to put half of our parmesan in. A really good amount of salt, because the potatoes, unlike boiling them, they haven't been boiled in salt, so you really need to counteract that. And some pepper. And then we'll use 1 lemon to zest. And then we just mix it all together. So we're going to mix it to the consistency of pasta dough. Obviously it's quite warm, so just be careful with your fingers, because it is still reasonably warm, but it just makes it easier to work when it's like that. You don't have to have the egg in it. It does help bind it, but you can do, in northern Italy they do gnocchi without any egg at all. Just add more flour. We can also add herbs at this stage if we want different flavours. We've got a little bit of parsley here, which I left over from one of the other dishes, so we'll bang that in, just for a bit of colour and a little bit of flavour. And once we're happy it's come together, we'll lightly flour aside and turn it out onto the bench, ready to roll. So always just save a little bit of flour back, just to dust the bench with. And all potatoes will be different, especially different times of year. So sometimes it will be a lot more, they'll be a lot more waxy, other times they'll be more sugary. So you might need to adapt the recipe, but that is just by adding more flour. So split it into 4, and then all we're going to do is roll them out into sausages. You can do these any shapes. You could break them into little bits if you wanted to. Just roll them into little balls like that. That would be fine. But there's loads of ways to do it. This is just easy if we just roll them out into 4 similar sized sausages. And you can get your kids helping with this. This is quite good fun. Like I say, make all different shapes. Right, so we're just going to cut these up now. So give them a little pinch, and then just cut down, and then you get that nice shape. And I'm just popping them on some greaseproof because I need to then transfer them to the water. And it's going to be a lot easier to do that by picking up the greaseproof paper rather than trying to chuck them in one by one. So it's nice to work while they still stay warm. Right, so I've split them across two pieces because it's easier to hold. So once you've cut them all, we'll chuck them straight in the boiling water. And when they float to the surface is when they're cooked. So they'll all sink to the bottom first and probably stop the water from boiling, and then the water will come back up to a boil. And when they start floating to the top, we'll fish them out and we'll add them to the rest of the dish. So while these are boiling, we're going to make our sauce. So a couple of spoonfuls of the pasta water, or the gnocchi water, straight in a pan. And then we'll add our butter. It's quite a large number of butter. And then 1 lemon, or if they're small, 2 lemons. And that will make an emulsion. So the acidity and the fat and the water will bind together and we'll have a nice buttery sauce. Once the water, lemon and butter begins to simmer, we'll add our greens. And our peas. And all the gnocchi are now floating, so we're ready to pop those in. You can add a little touch more of the water as well. So there'll be, firm little potato dumplings now. Similar texture to pasta, but made out of potato, so it's certainly a lot more inviting for children. The rest of the parmesan can go in. We still save a little bit back for going over the top, but this will help to thicken the sauce. A couple of turns with black pepper. Little pinch of salt. Again, this is one that will really work with any green vegetable, works well with carrots, anything. So once you've got the gnocchi recipe down, you can literally use it for anything. And you can make gnocchi with other things as well, not just potato. You can use sweet potato, but it's a really nice skill to have. And it is quick and easy. Once you know how it is pretty straightforward. So we'll take that off. We've got our mozzarella. So this is just a cheap ball of mozzarella from the supermarket. It's been left out of room temperature, so it's a little bit more runny, it's not rubbery. I'm just going to tear that and put it over the top. A couple of turns of pepper over the mozzarella, pinch of salt, and we'll finish it with the last of the parmesan. Or drizzle of olive oil.